So welcome to everyone in Europe and around the world. Thanks for the introduction. I'm Greg Campbell, Director of Design Oz and Chairman of the Charity Society for Responsible Design. So just moving these so I can see, that's better. Thank you for the opportunity today. Our perspectives are informed by experience with many design disciplines, well covered in our recent papers, looking for the big issues and promising solutions, such as moving to a truly responsible living economy. This brief has bullet points and the question, can we reverse climate change by 2030? Focus on the goal, UN SDG 13, climate action. The scientific and broader community sees climate change as the most significant ongoing threat to humanity and species. With concerted and sustained effort, it will be capable of being reversed, but by when? There needs to be a broad understanding of the issues to ensure this reversal is developed and enacted. We review salient points in multiple sectors to see where everyone may contribute to the most success. Academic, business, and government sectors need to work effectively with the community to allow this. Such advances will require reprioritization of the SDGs, matched with transparent assessment of global ecological best practice, GEBP, to identify workable concepts and processes with the capacity to generate sustainable resolutions for standalone and systemic problems. We need to revitalize the SDGs by adding accountable common sense thinking to enable the significant evolution required, to align socio-economic development with environmental sustainability, ed3200x1800. It was insightful for the UN to create the SDGs, yet the reverse of not giving them a suitable mechanism to revise, update, and improve their progress. The need for 8 billion individuals to have some cohesive plan for their care and stewardship of nature is a clear imperative. Our reviews, conversation, and research confirm that significantly changed prioritization of the SDGs is required to have any chance of the success they demand. Central to this assessing is the significant and growing global threats to life on Earth. The global primary goal of society should be to reverse the trends that cause these issues. Wicked problems can work both ways. Resolving one major issue can give great help to another. Consumerism was beneficial to a point that passed last century, about 1970. Waste and other manufacturing goods must be redesigned to become other resources. Incentives through taxes, rebates, and research to attain the ultimate sustainability values. Somebody Else's Problem author Robert Crocker says, recent studies suggest household consumption is responsible for between 60 and 70% of global emissions and over 50% of freshwater and arable land use, Dubois et al. 2019. Created as a solution to the economic problems of the 1930s, today's growth economy results in a systemic overconsumption of energy and resources and a global waste and pollution crisis. In response, today's green growth policies promote efficiency gains in individual products, but mistakenly assume these will lead to global reductions in impact. Instead, these tend to lower the costs of use, which leads to more and more repeat consumption. Centarius 2012. Increasing the transparency of product and supply chain impacts, embedding the costs of these in prices, and implementing various circular product life extension strategies could help reduce the impact of this consumption problem. For example, if smartphones were more responsibly designed, they could remain in use for 8 years, nearly 4 times today's global average retention rate. Crocker 2012. Saving resources and energy now required to manufacture 4 times more of these products. While this would require policy interventions and new business models, the result could dramatically reduce material and resource consumption and impacts. Food and its wastage is another big potential being progressed. Saul Griffith says, electrify everything. The process to electrify America made great bounds since the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, cutting growth in emissions and providing a valid structure to transition to renewables across USA. Similar to some changes in Australia, while this is applaudable progress, it lacks speed and does not address the increasing development and reliance on fossil fuel-based natural gas, particularly in the LNG form. Electrified changes include heat pumps in various forms with big savings per household, transitioning away from fossil fuel heating with health, cost, and greenhouse gas benefits. Global liquid natural gas, LNG usage and exportation is still increasing. Recent report covers smoke and mirrors in Papua New Guinea, with French-supported conservation project being more than offset with a significant expansion of new LNG contracts. Further promotion to uptake electric vehicles and increasing electrical and battery use in community and manufacturing processes. Further promotion and review Al Gore's TED Talk on working to stop untrustworthy fossil fuel companies, noting that electrify will not resolve much for the natural habitat and species loss. Nigel Howard says built environment codes need net zero now. Successful promotion of building rating tools uptake, eco-labelling and environmental product declarations have not been matched by scientific and technical developments of environmental assessment and rating schemes. High-profile green projects don't deliver enough real environmental benefits to merit the current awards activity and expenditure. The National Construction Code in Australia and regulations internationally need to mandate net zero emissions for all buildings from new. Housing in Australia would then accelerate emission reductions from houses fourfold, significantly contribute uptake of solar photovoltaics on housing roofs, and make all new houses more affordable day one, because the energy cost savings are up to 8 times larger than the additional mortgage payments for the required solar panels. Net zero is easier for house builders to achieve than further energy efficiency requirements, and easier to verify compliance without any gaming, with new owners' energy bills at 12 months revealing if net zero has actually been achieved. Add house builders opportunity to value add, sell additional solar and solar charging points for electric vehicles. Net zero for multi-residential, commercial, industrial and retail buildings is more challenging with landlord-tenant problems and inability to sell excess solar to other users at correct market rates. Greater storage needs on the grid to obviate curtailment at peak generation times. The building standard has to be net zero now. We've run out of time for anything less, and it can be economically beneficial if housing and for many other sectors. It's over-optimistic to talk about reversing climate change. If we have triggered compounding feedback loops, as described in hothouse Earth research, we are headed to 4 to 6 degrees Celsius warming unstoppably. These last 12 months saw climate records being absolutely smashed for temperatures, flooding, Arctic sea ice loss, etc. Yes, we have for hothouse Earth earlier than expected at 2 degrees C warming by about 2030. Even if this were not so bad and we stopped all emissions today, adopting every mechanism for carbon drawdown in nature with reforestation, mangrove, peat bog, prairie and seagrass restoration and in agriculture, we would only reduce atmospheric CO2 by approximately 30 parts per million per century. We're still adding this much CO2 every decade. So the damage we're doing now will only be reversed back to stable climate levels very slowly, centuries, perhaps millennial. It's disturbing in the extreme how complacent and in denial most are to this science. Clarity Environment, Howard, 2023. We need to resolve how to apply these higher standards to renovations and retrofits, along with stricter standards in the first place, focusing on energy use, appliances, and greenhouse gas emissions. Other points are getting off all fossil fuel gases, building with bamboo, hempcrete, and other advanced materials, green roofs, light covered roofs, integrating nature, and good implementation. A prime new direction needs to be awareness and protection of the biosphere, which sustains all life. Some examples: agriculture can sequester carbon and increase production. There are multiple means to increase the soil carbon content, increasing health, depth, moisture, and yields. Mixed variety and multiple season cropping, with a focus on keeping the ground covered and while increasing natural water cycles. Methods of fast acting significantly and save chemical usage, culturally appropriate and locally productive. Decarbonising fertiliser by making green hydrogen to make ammonia, adding nitrogen to get green fertiliser is one direction. However, closer scrutiny suggests that better soil yields are preferable results. Crosslink 2022. Prioritising the SDGs to develop globally a truly responsible living economy deserves greater expansion, will allow much more positive change. One significant aspect introduced in our last paper deserves greater expansion and development. The critical factor of involving the greater public to make conscious shifts in their common but relatively recent bad habits has largely been overlooked. This is being more aware of the consequences, both positive and negative. Making accountability and stewardship positive achievements for everyone to participate. Owning the positive and encouraging virtue signalling for the common good as a desirable choice and position. Developing and encouraging genuine RLE as a working structure for achieving many more goals and targets. We welcome greater cooperation and co-opetition to achieve this with a new focused independent journal updated annually just for this purpose. We'd be delighted to assist the wider network with creating this. Another significant aspect for industry and design is global ecological best practice, GEBP. How is this?
About 6 more minutes of your 20.
Good, thank you. How is this form of best practice shared globally? How can GEBP be a positive sharing focus for worldwide design and manufacturing standards, incorporating full life cycle analysis and ensuring minimized energy pollutants in production, usage, and product end of life? Review the destructive environmental consequences on the lands of less wealthy countries of the global south. Contamination, deforestation, and invasive production practices by more affluent countries have resulted in the inequitable scenario of the global north getting wealthy as the ravaged landscapes of global south countries become poorer and more severely impacted. Consequences include land degradation, sea inundation, and ruined natural flood resources on land and seas. Current processes are mostly just profit-focused and would benefit from national, state, government-based incentives to foster GEBP. Green chemistry has many elements to contribute. Making things benign by design, keeping new products safer by creating them to be so. Two recent examples, ultrasound and microwave irradiation, contributions of alternate physiochemical activation methods to green chemistry. In completion, aim to grow cooperation and co-opetition with references to X Prize, the Earthshot Prize, and other ideas like gamification to save the planet by an environmental engineer software designer with 20 years experience in environmental change is ready now. Compilation of UNSW industrial design ideas for the last 20 years and a selection of SRD Change National 8-year series are some great examples. Fashion also has a footprint much larger than it shows. Significant interest, awareness of the industry's consequences, and the desire to rectify are growing. Many materials are made from fossil fuels, and their carbon emission consequences are becoming more publicized. Multiple toxic pollution and species consequences making fixing this sector much more urgent. Microfiber pollution is affecting the food supply and significantly changing the balance of nature. Used fashion is often shipped to third world countries, which act as waste dumps. Changing production with more sustainable fabrics, organic dyes, and multiple purpose styles for reuse, upscaling, and repurposing. Whenever possible, recycling and adopting design result management options should be included in the initial design phase to reduce the final waste output. Other goals and target priorities are in Project Drawdown Top 10 and will be in this chapter: replacing refrigerant gases, land-based wind turbines, better targeted education for girls, etc. We're currently growing the SRD charity. The website now has a Give Now and membership page. What can you do? Read our papers, visit the SRD website, grow SRD Pro, join our Mighty networks, do everything humanly possible. If we don't know the answer to reversing climate change by 2030, to protect everyone's future, we still need to know exactly how it may be possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greg, for your presentation and your points that you have put up as well. I am happy to see that Anton is here and has prepared a few first-hand comments. So please, Anton.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the Greg to present your articles on this very novel idea of I will call it very ambitious, because your title is "Can we reverse climate change by 2030?" And when I first time look at this title, and I will see impossible, mission impossible maybe in my view, because that's why now every country try to use the 2015 and then zero by 2050 to see if the countries can work together to how to say to reverse the climate change after this kind of net zero. And first of all, I would like to say that because I'm not a scientist, and in your articles, actually, or your presentation, you mentioned a lot of different sustainable technologies to improve the climate. So, but as a legal expert, I did a lot of interdisciplinary publication in the very famous journal like Energy Policy or Renewable and Sustainable Energy Review and the Energy Strategy Review. And so I try to use this kind of interdisciplinary approach to provide a certain recommendation, maybe not a comment to your articles. And first of all, I would like to say that at the beginning, you proposed this idea of a responsible living economy, RLE. That's quite a very ambitious intention to add more, to add more items into the existing SDG, 17 SDG. Because in my view, in the past few years, and I also taught the SDG and the sustainable development in my course. And usually I always say, I like to say that actually every daily thing we do, it's a part of the SDG. It's relevant to the SDG. So it is very difficult to find something beyond this kind, the current 17 SDG. So so you are really ambitious to try to create a new SDG. And I share some information in the room chat. And of course, I always criticize all Taiwanese government to create this kind of stupid SDG of SDG 18, because this SDG has a lot, it's very problematic. For example, the nuclear-free homeland, nuclear phase out is not good for the SDG. Now you care about SDG 30, the climate actions. So so that's why I would like to, my question would be from the kind of methodology approach. I would like to know if what's the relationship between this RLE to the existing 17 SDGs. In my view, for example, the SDG 12 or SDG, the 8th SDG, both of them are very relevant to the economy. And that's the one of the very important concept in your RLE. The E is referring to the economy. So my first question maybe would be how do you deal with the overlapping part of your SDG and the existing SDG? Okay, and my second question would be, you are talking about a lot of technology, and you mentioned something like I think among all of the technology, and recently I'm try to see how to say, there are certain technology that we will see is like absolutely positive to the climate change, like renewable energy. No one will oppose this idea. But the problem is the certain technology you mentioned in your presentation. It's happened that Australia is also rich in this kind of natural resources. That is the gas and LNG. I always found the role of gas and the LNG is very tricky during this kind of net zero transition or the energy transition process, because in some countries like Taiwan, we embrace the LNG like the savior of Taiwan's energy future, because we can use it to replace the more evil energy that is coal. We can use the gas to replace the coal. But in some countries, they dislike this approach. They think, how can we use less evil to replace the more evil? because even though the gas is cleaner, but it's still emit the CO2. So that's why in some countries like South Korea or maybe and many countries, they start to went back and go back to embrace the nuclear power. They think we use nuclear power can replace coal and the gas at the same time. So that's why I would like to know, under your concept of RLE, and the energy is very important and play a very important role in our economy. And how do you evaluate the role of the gas or LNG under your new SDG, the new SDG you create? That's maybe my short question, or maybe the recommendation to your article. Thank you.
Well, thank you very, very, very much, Anton, for your comments and the two major questions that Greg can bring with him. If you want, you could respond very, very briefly, but the main idea is to bring it on and see whether this can improve your piece. We have maybe 3 more minutes for this part.
Yeah, and Greg, if you could kindly stop sharing the slides, then we could see you better. And I have some comments as well, so please save some time for me.
Yes. Thank you for your questions, Anton. Yes, need to start with the reality that everything that the world is trying to achieve for the SDGs is hopelessly out of touch with the time frame for 2030. Half of the goals at the moment are in stasis, a quarter are going backwards, and a quarter are progressing. So I thought it was necessary to make some bold statements and make some suggestions for moving forward, because current practice isn't getting there. The idea for the RLE, Responsible Living Economy, was certainly a part of that recognition. I think if you listen to Al Gore's TED Talk, he'll talk about how despicable the fossil fuel corporations have been for decades, and the money that they have been putting towards disinformation and misinformation, and pretty much the right of politics, that everything's sort of okay, especially if you vote us in. Whereas we can see globally what's happening. We need more people to take interest, be more knowledgeable, and give more action to these things. And a responsible living economy, and also even goal 18, seem to be a logical part for that, because the current 17 aren't working. Some of them aren't even sustainable to start with. So, you know, there's a lot of things going on. I never thought I'd be able to resolve them all, but I certainly wanted to put it out there and put the challenge to the global academia, governments, and popular. Just hopefully that's covered most of what you said, but working towards keeping it very simple, working towards things that are beneficial for long-term life on Earth. Let's do more of that. If things are negative for long-term life on Earth, we should be stopping them or reducing them significantly ASAP. You did mention gas as well. According to my research and reading, once you include fugitive emissions, it's actually quite comparable to coal and other fossil fuels. And there's been so much misinformation about that too. It's very hard to get to what is the truth in it. But certainly all fossil fuels are putting up the greenhouse gas.
Thank you, Greg. Just to allow another comment of Ranjula and a final comment of myself, just to bring it on for writing up the paper. So please, Ranjula, go ahead.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you, Greg, for a really rich presentation. It's very rich in ideas, and I also looked through the draft. So as the editor, I was just wondering, how are you planning to frame the chapter? Exactly how are you going to tie these ideas together? That's my first question.
I was interested to see the response that I got from the panel. I was interested to put it to the whole group. There's a lot of good contacts we have already that have contributed so far. Nigel Howard was instrumental in setting up BREAM in the UK, and then with the Green Building Council in the US. Rob Crocker writing about consumerism. I was going to draw on more experts and get their assistance to pull it together. I think the end of November would be challenging for us. We'd probably need to more like mid to the end of December to get it together. But I wanted to include more input, and if we have to tighten it, we do. We probably will, but I certainly wanted to put the ideas out there and see where we could make the most change to turn things around, because as Nigel Howard was saying, they're not being turned around even a little.
So maybe I could throw a few ideas out there and you could see what fits well with you, because as specified, like you've tried to create this new sustainable goal number 18, and that is mostly linked to 13, 14, 15, and 10 and 8. So 10 and 8 are very kind of, 10 could be socioeconomic, but 8 is like quite focused on the economy. And I don't see any connect to goal number 12, and 13, 14, 15 are more environmental. So I'm thinking, like, are you going to frame your ideas as something arguing for a transformation of the way we are addressing the SDGs, which is different from what you are discussing in terms of making revisions of SDG? What I mean is, like, are you thinking that the ideas of the 20th century are like sort of that whole theoretical thinking in terms of addressing the the growth development paradigm that existed? Are you challenging that? Another way could be to frame the whole chapter as, the question that you ask and as possible solutions. Another way could be just to look at midterm, how well we are doing with respect to some of these things. And so, and I think that it would serve the purpose if the objective becomes more clear, but that would also depend on how you want to frame these rich ideas together into one chapter. So I'll leave it at, oh, and one thing I should mention in terms of style guide and things is that you have, if you're planning to have a lot of figures, we'll probably be publishing the figures and the photographs in black and white, and you would need the permission if you're using photographs. So you should keep that in mind and perhaps minimize the use of, unless they're really needed, I mean, try to abstract away from using those. So very quickly, those were my comments. Thanks.
Lots of
Thank
love.
you, Ranjula. Very good editor's comments. My final just giveaway is, maybe Ranjula, you touched upon that, is the concept of degrowth, and whether that, as an academic deeply discussed concept, may relate to the suggestion of the number 18 RLE, which is based on economy, and how does that relate to the ongoing discussion on degrowth? Would be also maybe an opportunity for the chapter. We have to leave it by that for now. Thank you very much, Greg, for presenting this ambitious project. And please remember that now is time to start writing up the final text-based version as well.